I play good at all. I think it's a lot of things, we need to look at, during the week and go and just get comfortable even throwing routes, with Jerry and throwing routes with all those guys. So I think that was my first ball to him all year. But other than that, I just think overall we just got to go next week and understand so then we...
What in the gridiron multiverse is going on right now? Myles Garrett just flipped the whole football internet on its head by speaking up about Shedeur Sanders, and this was not some mild little handshake moment. This felt like the kind of sideline heat that makes a whole season feel like a reality show with no commercial breaks. Did Myles just crown Shedeur the future king of football, call him out, or drop a bomb that nobody was ready for? This thing went wild in seconds. Shedeur Sanders was sitting there acting like the entire Browns-Ravens mess was somehow all on him, like he personally turned the ball over, missed the tackles.
I know there was one drive in which he kind of walked off, and I saw him. He was putting his head down. He was kind of thinking about, I know he wants to make the play. He wants to, have that game-changing drive because, he feels like he has that ability, and we've seen it. So, don't be discouraged from one drive or two drives. It's a good football team over there. So, just trying to keep him to keep his confidence high, and keep on chasing that standard in which he set. And we're going to continue to support him. He spoke after the game, and he wanted to pin it on himself and his performance,
and forgot to pay the electric bill before kickoff. He was carrying that loss like he was starring in his own sad documentary. And meanwhile, the Ravens pulled up with the same vibe as tax collectors coming for overdue payments. And the Browns front office acted like quarterbacks were disposable slippers you get in a hotel and toss out the next morning. But Shedeur, nah, he tried to take the whole weight anyway. And Myles, man, he shut that down instantly. Not on his watch, not with him standing there built like the final boss in every comic book movie. If Shedeur wanted to blame himself for something, Myles probably would have preferred it be something normal, like apologizing for snatching the last protein shake out the locker room fridge. But a whole franchise loss, a whole defensive breakdown, an entire identity crisis? No way. Garrett basically stepped in and blocked that guilt like he was swatting down a pass at the line of scrimmage. You could almost feel him thinking, you're not about to let management off the hook for this one. They earned this chaos, they trained for this chaos, they practically got certified in it. And he wasn't letting Shedeur take that heat alone, not for 1 second. Because if there's one thing Myles Garrett is fluent in, besides tossing 300-pound linemen like they're tiny couch pillows, it's spotting when the Browns are running their classic quarterback mix-ups again. This team has turned quarterback mismanagement into an art form, the kind of thing scientists could study in a lab with protective goggles.
Giving me the opportunity to get out there. That's all you could ask for, honestly. The chance to get out there, get your feet wet, to experience how it feels, to even be out there with the team, with the first group, with everybody. So I'm truly was excited.
I think everyone was surprised to see him go to the 5th round. He's come to camp and OTAs with a great attitude. He's a hardworking guy. He has a good head on his shoulders. He's always positive, always optimistic, always keeps a smile on his face, and you like going to work with people.
2 decades of data, dozens of quarterbacks, and the only thing that stays consistent is disappointment. Their yearly highlight reel might as well be titled, What Not to Do with Young Talent, because you could hand them Patrick Mahomes and somehow he'd be coaching special teams in 6 weeks. So when Shedeur tried to step up and say, it's my fault, Myles saw the trap forming instantly. He saw the code, he saw the scheme, he saw the whole blame-shifting machine starting up like an old Windows XP computer, freezing at 3 a.m. Shedeur, bless his football heart, looked crushed, and Myles felt that sadness from a mile away. Everybody in the building, maybe even the hot dog guy outside, some could see Shedeur got tossed into this situation like someone who barely learned to drive and suddenly got handed a Formula One car. Go race, no pressure, try not to crash. Inspirational? Sure. Realistic? Not even close. Imagine walking into a system that treats quarterbacks like cheap rechargeable batteries. Use them, drain them, toss them, replace them, and then act shocked when the results aren't perfect. But of course, the quickest target is always the new kid. Blame Shedeur. Blame the one who still believes getting drafted is a blessing and not the first step in NFL-level mental warfare. Myles Garrett wasn't about to watch another young quarterback be pushed toward the edge just to save a press conference. He's seen this whole story play out more times than anyone should. He's had front row seats, backstage passes, and probably a punch card for the experience.
After the Browns' 23-16 loss to the Ravens. What a football game that was. It was really, really exciting for fans. Unfortunately for Browns fans, it did not go their way in the end, but it almost did. And of course, the big news of the day is the fact that Shedeur Sanders finally made his NFL debut. He couldn't pull it out in the end. He had 3 chances to throw a 25-yard game-tying or game-winning touchdown pass and wasn't able to pull it off. But I do really honestly think.
And he wasn't letting Shadow take the fall for a system that hasn't consistently taught quarterbacks, protected them, supported them, or even identified them properly in years. Because let's be real, Shadow's frustration didn't come from ego or drama. It came from someone who cares and someone who wants to succeed in a place that keeps making that harder than it should be. It came from someone who actually cares, someone who wants to grow, someone who took that loss to heart because he still has hope. And hope inside the Cleveland building is basically the most explosive thing you can carry. It's wild how the one person trying to improve ends up drowning in guilt, while the system that created the mess stays untouched. Meanwhile, Myles Garrett is standing there like a veteran teacher watching a freshman raise his hand to take the blame for a fire drill he didn't even cause. Myles hit him with the raised eyebrows, the tilted head, the silent, "Stop this right now," energy. He's seen this script too many times, and he was not about to let Shadow become the next dramatic chapter in a sad season recap. If the Browns front office could speak, they'd probably say something like,
I wanted to hop on here and talk about Shedeur Sanders and not what you think. The performance wasn't great. It needs to get better. He didn't have any help. Here's what I do want to say. And Luke McCown, Brian Hoyer, backup quarterbacks unite, right? Like, I feel like I'm very well placed to talk about this. Luke McCown sent out a tweet earlier. I'm gonna try to put it here. It's gonna be a lot of different parts. Just keep me going. Pretty much outlining everything that goes on within a backup quarterback's life and just exactly what Shedeur Sanders.
wow, Shedeur is so accountable, so mature, so leadership-driven, while secretly prepping paperwork to make him the official fall guy for everything from turnovers to stadium rent. And Myles saw that whole move coming from a mile away, which is why he shut it down instantly. Yet somehow the guy who isn't even fully settled into the system is the same one trying to carry every ounce of blame on his back like he's supposed to fix decades of problems by himself. Shadow wanted to step up like a superhero, but Myles wasn't letting him put on that cape because in Cleveland, heroes don't get sequels, they get documentaries. So what does Garrett do instead? He calls out the real issue, the infrastructure, not the fans, not one player, not some ref's decision. And the funniest part, Shadow is out here trying to look tough and responsible while Myles is standing next to him like, I'm not letting this dude get emotionally wiped out today. It was a whole protective moment with the volume turned up.
He never thought in a million years this is the way he'd be born into the league. His draft is still and always will be, I think. And I once upon a time saw a first-round pick fall in the draft because he was on the Pineapple Express with the videos showing about Larry Tunsil. Yeah. I thought that was the strangest draft I've ever seen of a one player, but that just lasted half a night. Shedeur's, as we know, lasted 3 days to the point where even my mom is asking, what's up with...
The switch up was unreal. One moment, Shadow's out here trying to label himself the villain, and the next he's a protected rookie. Not coddled, protected. Myles Garrett wasn't telling him he's flawless. He was telling him he has the right to grow without dragging Cleveland's old habits on his back like some spiritual backpack. Because once you start apologizing for chaos you didn't cause, you turn into a full-time apology machine, and Garrett wants no part of watching another quarterback get emotionally fried like that. Here's the part nobody likes to say out loud. Myles stepping in wasn't ego, it was experience.
First NFL start taking over versus a Ravens team.
Yeah, listen, we trust all of our guys. We trust our guys to perform. He's no different, and playing a backup quarterback role, as we've talked about over the years, that's tough to come in there. But we trust him. I know there's things that he's going to want to do better.
He's been around long enough to recognize the signs, and he wasn't letting this script run again. He backed Shadow, not because he's overly emotional, but because he knows exactly how fast this team chews through quarterbacks. He knows the conveyor belt, he knows the warning lights, and he definitely knows when somebody is trying to play superhero for a disaster they didn't create. Every franchise has a culture. Some grow stars, some build dynasties, and then there's Cleveland, a historic place where quarterbacks are basically forged in misery and escape only through trades, retirement, or some miracle-level twist. Shedeur was about to throw himself on the grenade just to keep the chaos tradition alive, and Myles Garrett straight up unplugged that whole plan like someone yanking the power cord out of a game console mid-match. Because whether anybody likes it or not, the future doesn't depend on Shedeur apologizing. It depends on the Browns actually developing him, actually training him, actually protecting him, actually supporting him.
It's probably like a D-. There's context to that, though. Let's not freak out. I also understand he's gotten very few, if any, reps in practice. He hasn't played with any of these starters. It's a super tough situation to come in cold off the bench in a game that you weren't expected to play in against the Ravens. You know, you're not playing against scrubs. So it's a tough spot. There's reasons for the struggle, but there's no denying it wasn't a great performance. Now, where it differs from like watching Dillon Gabriel play.
And that might be the biggest challenge this team has faced since the flip phone era, because doing it right hasn't exactly been their specialty. So Myles is basically out here spiritually guarding the perimeter, ready to swat away any blame, trying to land on Shedeur's shoulders. You can lose games, you can rebuild, you can make mistakes, but destroying a rookie's confidence before he even gets his footing, that's a whole different level of danger, and Myles wasn't letting it happen for 1 second. But the one thing Myles Garrett refuses to let slide is the Browns' favorite hobby, letting a young quarterback crumble just because it makes the organization's life easier. He's not letting that happen. Not today, not this season, not to Shedeur. And honestly, maybe that's the missing piece Cleveland's needed for years. A human firewall who blocks the blame game with the same force he uses to shut down running backs on Sundays. And for the first time in a long time, that actually feels like real progress. But the wildest part, what happened next?
And that's probably going to happen this week as they head out to face the Raiders in Las Vegas, because Dillon Gabriel is in the concussion protocol, and I just think there's a very, very good chance that Shedeur Sanders is going to start this game. Now, if Dillon clears, he'll be back out there. But I think at this point, that is a long shot. So what needs to happen? Shedeur needs to get into practice and take his first practice snaps with the first team offense. He hasn't done that before. We've been harping on it all season long that he has taken no reps with those starters. So that's the first thing that will happen. And then they will devise a game plan that...
You'd think that once Shedeur realized he wasn't allowed to swallow all the blame, he'd chill out, breathe a little, maybe grab a protein bar and head home like any normal player. But nope, this man doubled down on accountability like it was some championship event he trained for. He wanted responsibility the way kids want candy on Halloween. And honestly, it was kind of adorable in the most tragic football way. Meanwhile, Myles is watching him with the face of someone who has seen rookies burn themselves out on overworking mode way too many times. Myles wasn't about to let Shedeur reach that emotional meltdown stage, not on his watch. Think of it like this. Shedeur is the student who stays after class volunteering for punishment even though he didn't even talk during the lecture. The Browns are the teacher who keeps handing out essays until someone passes out. And Myles, he's the guy sitting in the back finally standing up like, nope, not today. We're not turning this into another quarterback funeral. He made the call that someone had to make, and he made it loud. Because here's the thing, Garrett isn't delusional. He knows that game was rough. He knows the loss stung. He knows the film session is going to feel like watching your own security camera footage after a terrible haircut and realizing you can't blame anyone but yourself. But he also knows one truth teams forget way too often. You don't build a quarterback by letting him sit in misery like it's a recipe. You build him by treating him like a long-term investment. You teach him. You train him. You surround him with real support instead of loading his shoulders with blame he didn't earn. And historically, the Browns have done the exact opposite. They hand a young quarterback the playbook, cross their fingers like they're hoping for a lottery win, maybe light a candle, turn off the lights, and pray for a miracle instead of doing the actual work. It doesn't have to be that way.
He was 4 for 16 for less than 50 yards. He is now the lowest rated quarterback in the history of the NFL. That is a fact, with a 13.5 rating. If you're a Shedeur fan, I'm telling you right now, if your rhetoric today is, yo, it's messed up, man. It's messed up. Yo, that's not, he didn't get a fair crack. No, he did. He did. From my main man, Shannon Sharp, to Ocho Cinco, to
Josina Anderson.
Who's like on his payroll, it seems like, right?
Yeah.
This moment was the emotional equivalent of someone tapping the brakes before the car smashes into a wall. A simple reminder that effort doesn't mean guilt, and you don't earn respect by punishing yourself for things you didn't cause. And that right there, that balance, is the part people overlook. Myles wasn't canceling accountability, he was teaching healthy responsibility, because there's a massive difference between owning your role and destroying yourself trying to fix everything. And the crazy part, the whole locker room felt the shift. Teammates noticed, people listened. When a veteran like Garrett steps up and puts a shield around his quarterback, that becomes the new tone.
But let me just say, for one, the Ravens, even though they're 4-5, they're a great team nonetheless. So that's one. But then two, you expect this dude to ball out in his debut, even though he's been sat all this time. Very smart, okay. But not only that, people are really acting like he did this bad. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a terrible stat line. But let me just put it out there that there were at least 3 passes that would have been key in their game-winning drive that his receivers literally had in his chest and arm and hand.
Suddenly, instead of everyone quietly letting Shedeur sink into guilt, the vibe switched to, "We lost together." You could practically hear the organizational gears grinding in confusion. Because here's something no PR department ever wants to admit. Unity ruins their favorite storyline. Blame spreads faster than anyone thinks. Once the quarterback starts soaking up every problem, the whole team begins stepping back like it's convenient. Coaches stay quiet, management nods like it all makes sense, fans buy into the story, and suddenly all the chaos of an entire franchise gets dumped on one person. That right there is how quarterback careers get erased before they ever get started, and Myles Garrett was not letting that script run again. This kid might honestly volunteer to apologize for the scoreboard font if you let him, but the truth is simple. Time will show whether the Browns actually develop Shedeur the right way or fall back into their old patterns. But something has changed, without a doubt. There's finally somebody inside that building pushing back against the cycle. Someone who's played enough years to know real potential needs time, patience, coaching, and protection. Not guilt, not pressure, not media feeding frenzies. And maybe that's where the shift begins. Not with big speeches, not with dramatic locker room breakdowns, not with perfect press conference quotes. It starts in quiet moments, with someone looking a rookie in the eye and telling him he doesn't need to crush himself to prove he cares.
Is it Shedeur Sanders not looking prepared, or perhaps maybe the Browns not having him well enough prepared?
I'm definitely blaming Kevin Stefanski and his offensive coordinator. What the hell is going on? You know what? Listen, you're the QB too. Shouldn't you have reps? Correct me if I'm wrong. Listen, we watched a lot of quarterback play over the years. We've seen people inept. We understand limited skill level and stuff like that. What's rare to see.
That's where growth begins. Shedeur will get better. He'll train, he'll learn, he'll clean up the mistakes, and he'll take accountability when it's actually his to take. But he's not carrying the ghost of the entire organization on his back anymore. Myles Garrett made sure of that with one powerful moment that changed the vibe of the whole locker room. Sometimes progress doesn't arrive with fireworks or bold headlines. Sometimes it shows up when a veteran is strong enough to refuse blame he doesn't deserve, and a rookie finally learns he doesn't need to drown in guilt to earn respect. That's the turning point. That's the moment where things get real. And that's exactly when Cleveland's future stops feeling cursed and starts looking possible. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you on the next one.